Spring in Austin usually carried the warmth of sunshine and blooming flowers, but this morning, the sunlight felt far too harsh for Charlotte Evans. She stepped out of her dorm wearing a designer trench coat, something she once wore out of habit. But today, everything had changed. Overnight, Charlotte had gone from heiress to penniless. And that wasn't a rumor. It was the headline on that morning's business news. Evans Leather Corporation declares bankruptcy. Chairman Richard Evans accused of embezzlement. Flees country with new wife and illegitimate son. Charlotte read those lines in silence. No tears, just a hollow stillness spreading through her mind. What bothered her most wasn't the news itself, but the eyes. As she walked across campus, she caught glimpses of students whispering and smirking. They looked at her like she was a fallen statue. She picked up her pace. She didn't even know where she was going. She just needed to get away. Away from their stares. Away from the pity. She needed air. She needed silence. But as she stepped down the stone stairs, oh no, the heel of her boot slipped on a patch of water. Charlotte fell hard, arms flailing. Her left hand hit the ground first, her white coat got dirty, and her phone clattered several feet away. Nearby students snickered, but no one offered to help. Gritting her teeth, she picked up her phone and bag, then stumbled into a nearby clothing shop. She didn't bother browsing, just grabbed a basic tracksuit and headed to the fitting room. It wasn't until she left the store that she realized the sweatshirt was a knockoff, with the word Adidas horribly misspelled across the chest. Charlotte let out a bitter laugh. Apparently, today wasn't done humiliating her. But didn't stop there. She arrived at a local cafe near campus. She had agreed to meet Jake Preston there. He had confessed to liking her a few weeks ago, and she had finally decided to give him a chance. Jake was already inside, sitting in the corner, with his arm around Rachel Moore. Charlotte froze. Rachel, her roommate who had acted so concerned about her family's troubles the night before, was now giggling sweetly in Jake's arms. Jake stood up as soon as he saw her, a smug expression on his face. "Charlotte, I think you should know. Rachel and I are together now," he said coldly. "I heard your family went bankrupt. Honestly, I don't want to be involved in drama. I already blocked your number, so don't bother contacting me." Charlotte said nothing. She wasn't sad or angry. Instead, she felt free. The masks were off. No more lies. No more fake friends. She looked at Rachel, who was barely hiding her triumphant grin, and smirked. "Thanks for showing your true colors. Congratulations." Then, turning to Jake, she added, "Oh, and Jake, please stop buzzing around me like a fly. I hate flies." There were scoffs behind her as she walked out of the cafe, but she didn't look back. The sun was bright, but her heart felt cold. Suddenly, her phone shut off. Battery dead. She plugged in her power bank, but nothing happened. Another hit. She found a public charging station nearby, but all of them required scanning a QR code through a mobile app. With her phone off, that wasn't an option. No cash. No way to call an Uber. No backup. And she was 3 bus stops away from campus. Was she really going to walk? That's when she spotted a familiar figure. Liam Carter. Tall, with soft brown hair and a calm, composed face. He wore a black backpack and held a few thick textbooks, walking out of the library with his usual measured pace. He always looked like nothing could shake him, not even the world falling apart. Charlotte had never been close to Liam. In fact, she assumed he didn't like her. He was the quiet type, a top student who kept to himself and volunteered on weekends. Everyone called him the campus prince, but he didn't seem to care for the title. She didn't know why, but she ran over and gave a nervous smile. "Hey, Liam, can I ask you a small favor?" Liam paused. His eyes scanned the odd tracksuit she was wearing, then the scratch on her cheek. "What is it?" "My phone died. I can't scan to rent a charger. Can you help?" Liam was quiet for a moment, then unzipped his backpack and handed her a power bank. "Use this." Charlotte plugged it in, but her phone still wouldn't turn on. She tapped a few times before realizing it wasn't the battery. Her phone was dead. She let out a weary breath. I don't have cash, and I'm still far from campus. I guess I'll just walk." Liam looked at her again. Without a word, he pulled out his wallet and handed her a $20 bill. "Take it. Think of it as a loan." Before she could refuse, he also handed her a smartphone, an iPhone that looked almost brand new. I still have my old phone for music. This one's pretty new, but you can use it. Charlotte was stunned. A guy she barely knew. A guy she thought disliked her. And yet, he was the only one who reached out when everyone else turned away. She held the phone and whispered, "Thank you. I'll pay you back as soon as I can." Liam gave a slight shrug. "No rus." Charlotte held the phone tighter. And in that moment, standing on the busy sidewalk, sunlight streaming through the trees, she felt a rare warmth bloom in her chest. The $20 bill from Liam was tucked neatly into the pocket of Charlotte's knockoff hoodie. It felt heavier than its actual weight, not because of its monetary value, but because of the kindness behind it. No one had offered her help all day. No one had even looked her in the eye with empathy. Except him. Still holding the temporary phone Liam gave her, she flagged down a cab and headed back toward her dorm. The ride was quiet. Charlotte stared out the window, watching the streets blur by, feeling oddly disconnected, like she was floating somewhere between her old life and the unfamiliar mess she was living now. Back at her dorm, Charlotte moved like a machine. She changed out of the fake sportswear and tossed it into the laundry basket without a second glance. Then she pulled on a fresh outfit, clean jeans and a navy sweater. Basic, simple, but more dignified than earlier. She opened her drawer and pulled out her debit card. The account her father had once funneled money into was now frozen, but she had a small personal savings account he had no control over, enough for basic expenses. She checked the time. Almost 5 p.m. Her stomach growled, and then she remembered. She'd promised Liam dinner. After the way he'd helped her, it felt like the least she could do. Charlotte texted him using the borrowed phone. "Charlotte, hey, I'm back at the dorm. I still owe you that meal. Pizza okay?" A moment passed before he replied. "Liam, sure. There's a place on 12th Street I like. Quiet, good slices. Want meet there at 6? Charlotte, perfect. I'll be there." Charlotte smiled for the first time that day. A real smile. The walk to the pizza place took 15 minutes. She took her time, letting the cool spring air calm her frayed nerves. The pizza place was tucked between a bookstore and an old music shop, its warm yellow sign glowing modestly above the door. Tony's Brick Oven Pizza. Liam was already there, waiting outside with his hands in his jacket pockets. When he saw her, he nodded slightly, that same calm expression on his face. "Hey," she greeted a bit breathless. "Hey," he returned, pushing the door open for her. Inside, the place smelled like melted cheese and fresh basil. The walls were decorated with faded photos of local high school football teams and signed dollar bills pinned behind the counter. Charlotte liked it instantly. It felt real, grounded. They ordered at the counter, 2 pepperoni slices for her, 1 mushroom for him, and a soda each. Liam tried to pay, but Charlotte insisted. "You've already done enough," she said firmly. "This one's on me." He didn't argue. They found a booth by the window and sat across from each other. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Charlotte took a bite and let out a soft sigh. "This is actually really good." "Told you," Liam said, cracking the barest of smiles. Silence settled again, but it wasn't awkward. Finally, Charlotte looked up. "Why did you help me today?" Liam sipped his soda, then answered simply, "Because you needed it." "Yeah," but she hesitated. "You don't even really know me. And I always thought, I don't know, you kind of avoided me." Liam raised an eyebrow. "Avoided you?" "Well, yeah. You were always polite but distant. I figured maybe you thought I was shallow or entitled or something." He set his cup down. "I didn't avoid you. I just didn't think you'd ever want to talk to me." That surprised her. "Why not?" He shrugged. "You ran in a different circle, always surrounded by people who only cared about brand names and social clout. I figured you weren't like that. Not really, but it didn't seem like my place to intrude." Charlotte lowered her eyes. "I used to be like that," she admitted. "I thought all those things defined me. The clothes, the car, the family name. Now, I don't know who I am." Liam leaned forward, his voice gentler. "That's not true. I think today showed exactly who you are." She looked up at him, confused. "You didn't crumble. You didn't lash out. You took it. And when you could have begged or blamed anyone, you just kept going." He paused. "That takes strength." Charlotte felt something pinch in her throat. She blinked quickly. "Thanks," she murmured. "I needed to hear that." Liam gave a small nod, then changed the subject. "So, what's your plan now?" Charlotte chewed slowly. Try to finish this semester. Find a part-time job. Maybe move into cheaper housing. I have some savings. Not much, but I'll stretch it. If you need help finding a job, I know some people on campus. I work in the library part-time. They're always looking for student assistants. Her eyes widened. Really? He nodded. Come by tomorrow. I'll introduce you to the supervisor. Gratitude flooded through her. Liam, you're like a walking lifeline. He chuckled. Not really. Just a guy with 2 phones and extra pizza. They laughed together. It felt so normal, so human. For the first time in days, Charlotte felt like she wasn't just surviving. She was slowly finding her footing again. After dinner, they stepped outside. The sun had dipped below the buildings, casting long shadows over the sidewalk. Charlotte turned to him. Thank you again. For everything. He looked at her, hands in his pockets. Anytime. There was a pause. And then, unexpectedly, he added, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm around. She smiled. I might take you up on that. They parted ways, and as Charlotte walked back to her dorm, her phone vibrated. A message from Liam. Liam, you're stronger than you think. Charlotte stopped walking. For a long moment, she just stood there, staring at the screen. Then she whispered to herself, maybe I am, and kept walking. The next morning, Charlotte stood in front of the campus library, the borrowed phone from Liam still in her coat pocket and her nerves bundled tight in her chest. She hadn't slept much the night before. Her mind kept replaying the dinner, Liam's words, and the look in his eyes when he said she was stronger than she thought. No one had ever said that to her, without a hint of sarcasm or ulterior motive. She pushed the door open. The library smelled like old paper and quiet ambition. Wooden shelves loomed tall on either side, and the soft hum of printers blended into the hushed whispers of students studying. Liam was already there. He stood by the circulation desk, talking to a middle-aged woman with sharp glasses and a kind smile. When he saw Charlotte, he waved her over with a subtle nod. This is Charlotte Evans, he told the woman. She's interested in applying for the assistant position. The woman turned to Charlotte with a welcoming expression. Hi there, Charlotte. I'm Dana, the library supervisor. Liam speaks highly of you. Charlotte blinked. He does. Liam shrugged behind her. A little. Dana chuckled. We're always looking for reliable people. Can you work evenings? Yes, Charlotte replied without hesitation. I'm available every weekday after 4 p.m. and weekends too. Perfect. We'll start you on training today if you're up for it. I'd love that. Thank you so much. Dana handed her a stack of training materials and led her through the first steps. It was straightforward, logging returns, shelving by Dewey Decimal, assisting students with print jobs. Charlotte listened carefully, took notes, and followed instructions with a diligence she hadn't shown in months. Somewhere between the reference section and the printing station, she realized, for the first time in a long while, she felt useful. Not admired, not envied, but useful. Later that afternoon, Charlotte exited the library, still clutching the training binder. She found Liam waiting under a nearby tree, sipping from a stainless steel thermos. She walked over, breath puffing in the cool spring air. I got the job. I know. Dana texted me. You didn't have to set that up, she said. I didn't do it out of pity, Charlotte. She looked up. I just thought you deserve a chance to reset, Liam added. Everyone does. Charlotte stared at him. Can I ask you something personal? He tilted his head. Sure. Why are you so kind? He let out a soft laugh. Not the kind that dismissed her, but the kind that said, you really don't get it, do you? I grew up watching people fall apart, he said simply. My mom had cancer when I was 10. My dad had to work 2 jobs just to cover rent. We didn't have much, but we had people who helped us. Neighbors, teachers, one of the school librarians even gave me old books to take home because we couldn't afford any. Charlotte didn't interrupt. She listened. I figured if I ever got a chance to help someone the way they helped us, I should take it. Charlotte's throat tightened. I'm sorry you went through that. I'm not, he replied. It made me who I am. She nodded slowly. It's strange. When I had everything, I didn't know who I was without it. Now that it's all gone, I'm learning. That's not strange, Liam said. That's growth. Over the next week, Charlotte's days found new rhythm. She attended classes, took notes, worked at the library, and learned to budget down to the last dollar. She began packing homemade sandwiches instead of eating at the cafe, reused notebooks instead of buying new ones, and even downloaded budgeting apps. It was humbling, but oddly freeing. And Liam, he became a constant. Not in a showy way, but in small, steady gestures, walking her to class when it rained, texting her study tips, occasionally slipping a granola bar on her desk at the library when her shift ran late. They never defined what was happening between them. It wasn't romance, at least not yet, but there was a quiet understanding, a deepening trust. Then came a Thursday Charlotte would never forget. It began like any other. She was shelving a row of political science books when she heard whispers behind her. Familiar voices. "So you're telling me that's Charlotte Evans?" Charlotte froze. "I heard she's working here now," said another voice. Unmistakably Rachel Moore's. Charlotte turned slightly, peeking through the shelf. Rachel stood at the end of the aisle with two other girls from their dorm. One of them laughed. "Did you see what she wore yesterday? A denim jacket from, like, Walmart." "I know, right?" Rachel said mockingly. "From Prada to poor girl in under a week. Karma really is beautiful." The words stung more than she'd expected. Not because they were cruel, but because they came from someone who used to sleep 5 feet away. Suddenly, a shadow moved behind Charlotte. She turned, and Liam stood there, silent and unreadable. He had heard everything. Without hesitation, he walked around the end of the shelf. "Rachel," he said. Rachel turned, flipping her hair with false surprise. "Liam, I didn't see you there. That's clear." He stepped closer, voice low but sharp. "If you have something to say about someone, at least have the decency to say it to their face." Rachel blinked. "It was just a joke." "No." Liam cut her off. "It wasn't. And for someone who leeches off her daddy's credit card, maybe you should think twice before mocking people who actually work for what they have." Rachel flushed red. "You're defending her now?" "I always have." Charlotte's breath caught in her throat. Liam turned back to Charlotte. "You okay?" She nodded. He reached out, took her hand, and gently led her away. They walked in silence until they reached the campus lawn, a peaceful corner under blooming dogwood trees. Charlotte looked down at her hand in his. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." She sat down on a bench, heart still pounding. "You don't know what it's like. One moment, I was the girl with everything. Respect, clothes, friends. The next, I'm someone's joke." Liam sat beside her. "You're not a joke." Charlotte swallowed. "Sometimes I think maybe people only ever liked me because I had money. Now that I don't, I'm just forgettable." "That's not true." She looked at him. "How do you know?" "Because I like you more now than I ever did back then." The world paused. Charlotte blinked. "You like me?" Liam rubbed the back of his neck. "I still do. But I didn't want it to be about timing. Or pity. I wanted it to be about choice." A slow, stunned smile spread across her face. "Then choose me," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I already did." The smell of burnt toast and scorched plastic hit Charlotte the second she stepped into the cafeteria. It was a Friday afternoon, and students were packed into every available seat. Laptops open, coffee cups steaming, voices buzzing in the echoing space. The usual energy of final season filled the air, but there was something else too. A heaviness. A tension. Charlotte's shift at the library had just ended. She clutched a worn notebook to her chest, her hair still damp from the unexpected spring rain. She scanned the cafeteria, hoping to find an empty seat or maybe even Liam, but the moment she stepped deeper into the room, she noticed the noise quieting around her. Heads turned. Someone whispered. Then someone else laughed. And then it came, the all-too-familiar voice of Rachel Moore. "Look who's here, Miss Budget Queen herself. Back from stacking books." Charlotte froze mid-step. The table Rachel sat at was crowded. Jake Preston, 2 of the fashion marketing girls, and several of their mutual friends. Jake smirked. He had always liked to be part of the joke. Charlotte turned slowly to face them, her expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," she said calmly. "Did you mistake the cafeteria for your high school lunchroom?" A few people nearby chuckled. Rachel's lips twitched into a fake smile. "I just meant, good to see you working hard. I guess some of us don't need handouts to get by." Charlotte opened her mouth to respond, but a loud popping noise interrupted the moment, followed by a sharp crack and a sudden burst of smoke from behind the food counter. Chaos erupted. Students jumped up, some screaming. Smoke quickly began to fill the room, thick and dark. The sound of the fire alarm screeched through the space. "Everyone out," one of the cafeteria workers shouted. "Fire! Move to the exits." Charlotte turned toward the smoke. Flames licked the edge of the food station where a deep fryer had apparently overheated. Grease had spilled onto the floor, catching the paper napkins nearby. She grabbed the arm of a girl frozen in place beside her. "Let's go." This way. People pushed and stumbled. The air grew hotter by the second. Charlotte's heart pounded. She couldn't see Liam. She couldn't see anything past the smoke. Then she heard it. A cough. Then another. Someone was still inside. She turned back, ignoring the wave of students fleeing around her. The smoke stung her eyes, but she moved toward the source of the coughing. Near the back of the kitchen door, she spotted a boy, one of the freshman volunteers, curled on the ground, arm over his head. Without thinking, Charlotte dropped to her knees and shouted, "Hey, can you move?" He barely nodded. She grabbed his arm and hoisted him up. He was half conscious, but his legs moved. Charlotte threw his arm over her shoulder and began dragging him toward the nearest exit. "Someone help me," she called out. Suddenly, two strong arms reached in Liam. He fought his way back in. Together, they got the boy out into the open air. Paramedics were already arriving. A crowd had gathered outside, faces anxious, some still laughing from the adrenaline rush. The fire had been small, contained quickly, but it was enough to shake the entire campus. Charlotte collapsed onto the sidewalk, coughing, stood on her hands and clothes. Liam knelt beside her, brushing damp hair from her face. "You okay?" She nodded. "He's okay too. He's gonna be okay." Liam looked at her, eyes filled with something between admiration and disbelief. "You went back in." "He was just a kid," she said. "He couldn't breathe. I couldn't leave him." A beat passed. "You're incredible," he whispered. Charlotte didn't answer. She just sat there, letting the chaos settle around them, letting the fear dissolve into something quieter, pride. News of the fire and of Charlotte's actions spread fast. By that evening, social media was flooded with photos and blurry videos. One clip showed Charlotte dragging the student from the smoke, Liam right beside her. The campus newspaper ran a headline the next day. "Former heiress becomes unexpected hero in cafeteria fire." Charlotte groaned when she saw it. They really had a lead with former heiress? Liam, sitting beside her in the library, smirked. "At least they called you a hero." She tossed the paper down. "I wasn't trying to be one. I just reacted. That's what heroes do." She gave him a sideways glance. "You know, I used to hate attention. But lately, I don't mind it when it comes from the right people." Liam looked up from his textbook. "Oh yeah? Who's the right people?" She smiled. "You." His ears turned a little pink, but he didn't look away. That evening, the Dean of Student Affairs requested to meet Charlotte. She arrived at the administrative building unsure of what to expect. The dean, a stern but fair woman named Dr. Allison, motioned for her to sit. "I want to personally thank you for your quick thinking yesterday," Dr. Allison said. "You likely saved a student's life." Charlotte shifted. No modesty. Please. What you did was brave. And it hasn't gone unnoticed." She slid a letter across the desk. Charlotte picked it up, eyes scanning quickly. It was a scholarship. Full tuition for the remainder of the academic year, plus a stipend. Her hands trembled. I don't know what to say." "You earned this," Dr. Allison said. "Sometimes character shows itself in the smallest moments. And sometimes in the middle of fire." Later that night, Charlotte sat in her dorm room, staring at the ceiling. Rachel hadn't spoken a word to her since the incident. Jake looked away whenever their paths crossed. Charlotte no longer cared. She had something better now. Purpose, clarity, and someone who truly saw her. She texted Liam. "Charlotte, I got the scholarship." Liam, "You deserve it." Charlotte, "You believed in me before anyone else did." Liam, "I didn't have to. You've always been this person. You just didn't know it yet." Her fingers hovered over the screen before typing. Charlotte, "Coffee tomorrow?" Liam, "Only if I get to buy it this time." She smiled. Charlotte, Deal. But I'm picking the place. Charlotte closed her phone and looked around her modest dorm room. Nothing in it was new. Nothing was designer. But it all belonged to her. Not the rich girl she used to be. Not the broken girl who had lost everything. Her. And for the first time in a long, long time, Charlotte Evans felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. Spring deepened. The dogwood trees around campus erupted into full bloom, painting the walkways with white and soft pink petals. It was the kind of beauty Charlotte used to pass by without a second glance. Now, she noticed everything. The changing seasons, the feel of warm sunlight on her face, the way the world kept moving forward even when hers had fallen apart. And slowly, so did she. Ever since the fire, her life had taken on a quiet momentum. She had gone from being whispered about for her family's fall to being admired, sometimes awkwardly, for her courage. Professors who used to greet her with cold politeness now stopped to ask how she was doing. Even classmates who once avoided her started sitting near her during lectures, striking up casual conversations. But none of that mattered as much as one thing, or rather one person, Liam Carter. What had begun as cautious friendship was now something else. They still hadn't used the word dating, but the way he smiled at her across the library desk, the way she slipped her arm through his when they walked to class together, said more than enough. It was one of those quiet Saturday mornings when everything seemed in sync. Light rain, good coffee, and Liam waiting at the small student-run cafe just off campus. Charlotte had picked the place. Cozy, eclectic, with secondhand couches and mismatched mugs. The kind of spot where no one cared who you were, only whether you liked your espresso hot or iced. She spotted him in the corner, already sipping from a faded ceramic cup with a painting of a cartoon sun on the side. "Is that the world's happiest mug again?" she teased as she sat down across from him. "It grows on you," he said, grinning. Charlotte laughed. "You're getting soft." He raised an eyebrow. "I helped carry a 200-pound freshman out of a burning building. I think I've earned the right to enjoy sun mugs." They laughed again, and Charlotte leaned back into the couch, warm and comfortable. No pressure. No expectations. Just this. "How's the scholarship transition going?" Liam asked. She nodded. "All set. I met with financial aid yesterday. It covers everything through the rest of the year. I even have a little left over for books and essentials." Liam smiled. "Good. You deserve it." Charlotte paused, then looked at him more seriously. "You keep saying that." "Why?" He blinked. "Because you've been through hell and kept walking." "But I didn't do anything special. I just didn't give up. That's exactly what makes you special." She looked down at her drink, suddenly shy. "You really believe in me that much?" "Edo." Silence settled between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was full, heavy with things unspoken. Charlotte looked up. "Liam, do you ever think about what comes next?" He tilted his head. "Like summer? After graduation?" "Yeah. And after that? What we want to do? Who we want to be?" Liam set his cup down. "All the time. I want to work with environmental nonprofits. Maybe even start my own one day. Clean water initiatives, conservation, that kind of thing." "You'd be amazing at that," she said sincerely. "And you?" he asked. Charlotte hesitated. "I don't know yet, but I do know that. I want to build something real. Something mine. Not inherited. Not handed to me. I want to earn it." Liam reached out, touching her hand across the table. "You already are." Later that week, an unexpected opportunity arrived in Charlotte's email. A student entrepreneurship program sponsored by a local business incubator. They were looking for applicants with resilience, ideas, and potential, regardless of background. Without hesitation, she applied. Her proposal? A startup aimed at helping students from disadvantaged backgrounds learn real-world budgeting, career prep, and independence, skills she never realized she lacked until her world collapsed. She stayed up late, crafting the application with Liam's help. They brainstormed ideas at the library, took notes on napkins, and practiced the pitch while walking through campus gardens. Every detail mattered. And for once, she didn't feel like an imposter trying to prove something. She felt like a woman with a vision. "You're going to get this," Liam told her the night before her interview. "How can you be so sure?" "Because it's yours," he said. "Not your father's. Not anyone else's. Just yours." The day of the interview arrived, and Charlotte stood outside the business hall in a simple navy blazer and slacks. Not designer, not flashy, just clean, neat, confident. Inside, the panel listened closely as she laid out her story. Not just the fall from wealth, but what it had taught her. She spoke about the gap between theoretical education and survival skills, about how financial literacy, self-worth, and resilience weren't being taught in classrooms. I used to think I needed money to be powerful, she said at the end. Now I know the real power is being able to rebuild, even after you've lost everything. When she finished, the room was quiet for a second too long. Then the lead judge smiled. Thank you, Miss Evans. That was moving and insightful. We'll be in touch soon. Charlotte left the building with her heart pounding and sunlight dancing through the trees. 2 days later, she got the call. She had been selected. The program came with a stipend, mentorship, and a chance to pitch her startup to real investors by the end of the semester. Charlotte was stunned. She called Liam. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, I got in, she shouted, barely able to contain her excitement. Liam laughed. I told you. Liam, this is huge. I get mentorship, a real chance to launch this. I mean, this could actually be something. It already is, he said. You are. That night, Charlotte met Liam by the riverfront. The city lights shimmered over the water, and students strolled nearby, enjoying the rare warmth of an early summer breeze. She wrapped her arms around herself. Everything's changing. Liam nodded. It always does. But this time it's good change. I'm not scared of it. He stepped closer. You shouldn't be. You earned it. Charlotte turned to face him. I wouldn't have gotten here without you. You would have. It just might have taken longer. No, I needed someone to see me when I couldn't see myself. Liam looked in her eyes, voice soft. I always saw you. And then, without fanfare, without hesitation, he leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle, sure, and full of the quiet promises they hadn't spoken aloud. When they parted, Charlotte laughed breathlessly. Finally. He grinned. I was waiting for the right moment. She smiled. I think this is it. From that moment on, they were no longer walking parallel paths. They were growing together like flowers in bloom. And Charlotte Evans, once the fallen heiress, was finally becoming the woman she was always meant to be. The invitation was unexpected. An embossed black envelope had been slipped under Charlotte's dorm door. She opened it cautiously, half expecting another cruel prank. But no. Inside was a perfectly printed card with gold trim that read, You're invited to Jake Preston and Rachel Moore's graduation celebration. An exclusive farewell to the past. Let's toast to the future. It was being hosted at one of the fanciest rooftop lounges in downtown Austin, the kind of place Charlotte once frequented with her father's credit card and now walked past without a second glance. She stared at the card for a full minute before letting out a sharp laugh. What? Liam asked from across the room, where he was sitting with his laptop, working on a grant proposal. She held it up. Jake and Rachel's farewell to the past party. Liam raised an eyebrow. You going? God, no. He smiled. Good, but I'm thinking maybe I should. That made Liam pause. Charlotte stood, still holding the invitation. Not to get back at them. Not for drama. But because I'm done hiding from who I used to be, and from people who think they can define me. Liam studied her, then nodded. Then go. Not as who you were. As who you are. She smiled. And you'll be there too, right? Wouldn't miss it. The night of the party, Charlotte wore a simple black dress. Not designer, not flashy, but sleek and perfectly tailored. Her hair was swept into a soft bun, and she wore no jewelry except a delicate bracelet Liam had given her last month. When they arrived at the rooftop lounge, the city sparkled beneath them. Waiters passed trays of champagne. A live string quartet played pop covers in the corner, and the elite of the student body posed for photos in front of a custom backdrop that read, From Campus to Conquerors. Rachel was holding court in the center of the crowd, her champagne-colored gown glittering under the lights. Jake stood beside her, a permanent smirk on his lips. Charlotte didn't flinch. People noticed her. The whispers started almost immediately. Is that Charlotte Evans? Didn't think she'd show up. She actually looks amazing. Charlotte held her head high, Liam's hand steady in hers. As they made their way to the edge of the lounge, Rachel spotted them, and froze. She smiled, thin and tight, and crossed the floor like a shark. "Well, look who decided to show. I thought you'd be too busy working a night shift." Charlotte's voice was calm. "I made time. Wouldn't miss such a symbolic evening." Jake approached, drink in hand. "Symbolic, huh?" Charlotte glanced around. "You're right. This place is full of endings." Rachel's smile faltered. "We're celebrating a new chapter. Some of us are moving on." Charlotte nodded. "Me too." Rachel looked her up and down, then scoffed. "Well, some people peak in high school. Others, well, they fizzle out." Charlotte leaned in, her voice low but steady. "You know what the best part of falling is? You get to decide how you rise. I'm not trying to prove anything anymore, Rachel. I'm just living. And it feels amazing." Jake rolled his eyes, always with the speeches. Liam, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. Funny coming from a guy whose resume is built on networking and nothing else. Jake stiffened. Rachel looked between them, annoyed. "You know what? Enjoy the party while you can. I doubt you'll be invited to many more." Charlotte smiled. "I'd rather be around people who don't need parties to feel valuable." And with that, she turned away. Later that night, Charlotte and Liam stood by the railing, looking out over the skyline. "Was that satisfying?" Liam asked. Charlotte considered it. "Not in the way I thought it would be. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done." "That's growth," he said. "Yeah." She exhaled. "And now, I'm ready for the next thing." He turned toward her. "Are you scared?" She nodded. "A little, but not of failing, just of losing this." He gently touched her chin, guiding her eyes back to his. "You're not going to lose me." "You say that now," she teased. "I say that always." A soft breeze passed between them. Then Liam pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. "Speaking of the next thing, I was going to wait, but I want to show you something." He handed it to her. She opened it slowly, then gasped. It was a letter from a nonprofit environmental organization based in Oregon. A paid fellowship, one of the most competitive in the country. "Liam, you got it." He nodded, slightly bashful. "Starts in July." "That's amazing." She threw her arms around him. "You deserve this so much." When she pulled back, she asked the question already lingering in both their minds. "And us?" He didn't flinch. "I've been thinking about that too. I have a proposal." Her eyes widened. "Already?" He laughed. "Not that kind. This one's simpler. Come with me. We'll figure it out together. We can build your startup from anywhere, and I can start my work. New city, new life. As equals." Charlotte felt something bloom inside her, wider, brighter than anything she had expected. "You're serious?" "I am." She smiled slowly. "Then let's do it." 2 months later, Charlotte stood in the airport terminal, backpack slung over her shoulder, ticket in hand. Liam was beside her, reading from a brochure about the Oregon coast. They were different now, not in the way they dressed or the way people looked at them, but in the way they looked at themselves. Stronger, clearer, unshakable. Before boarding, Charlotte took one last photo of the Austin skyline from the window. She sent it to her own number, the one she used to have, the one she lost when everything else fell apart. Then she turned off the borrowed phone for good. It had served its purpose. And now, she was writing her own. Charlotte Evans was never just the fallen heiress. She was the woman who rose again. And this time, the world would know her not by the name on a credit card, but by the name she carved out for herself.